Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. Here we will take up the news articles from The Hindu of Delhi edition and discuss them as per the demands of UPSC Civil Services exam. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. Let us begin our discussion. The first topic of today's discussion is based on this news which appeared at page number 4 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the Uniform Civil Code, and the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. M.K. Stalin, has said that hasty implementation of Uniform Civil Code could result in constitutional breakdown. The topic of Uniform Civil Code was in news since last few days, and it became an important point of contention between different political parties. And the topic of Uniform Civil Code is relevant for General Studies Paper 2, under which Indian Constitution, its features and significant provisions have been mentioned. And the importance of any topic which is coming in the newspapers can be mapped from the previous year papers both for prelims and mains. As you can see, in 2015, UPSC asked that discuss the possible factors that inhibit India from enacting for its citizens a uniform civil code as provided in the directive principles of state policy. So from this particular question, we get to see the importance of this particular topic, and due to the huge gap on this particular theme, this topic is most expected and relevant for UPSC Mains 2023. So in today's discussion, we will try to analyze the different aspects of Uniform Civil Code. We will emphasize more on the need for Uniform Civil Code in India and the issues which are associated with the implementation of Uniform Civil Code in India, and finally the steps that could be taken towards the implementation of Uniform Civil Code. Let us first try to understand what is Uniform Civil Code. The Uniform Civil Code is a term used to refer to proposed legal framework which is aimed at governing personal matters such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, and maintenance for all citizens of a country, regardless of their religious or cultural backgrounds. In short, UCC aims to replace personal laws based on religious or community customs with a common set of civil laws which are applicable to all citizens. Further, in countries with diverse religious or cultural communities like India, different personal laws often govern various aspects of individual lives, including family matters. For example, there are separate laws for Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and other religious groups regarding marriage, divorce, and inheritance. So, in this particular regard, Article 44 of the Indian Constitution says that the state shall endeavour to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. So if a question is being asked on Uniform Civil Code, you can start your answer with this particular definition or Article 44, which comes under the directive principles of state policy. Now, as we have understood what is Uniform Civil Code, now we will see what is the need to bring Uniform Civil Code in the country. The first point is equality and non-discrimination. As Uniform Civil Code treats all citizens equally under one law, irrespective of their religious or cultural backgrounds, which will result into equality and non-discrimination among different communities. And it further eliminates the disparities that exist in personal laws, particularly related to gender equality and women's rights. For example, in many communities, personal laws based on religious traditions may permit practices such as polygamy or unequal inheritance for women. So, this was the first need to bring Uniform Civil Code. The second one is gender justice. A Uniform Civil Code provides equal opportunities for women in areas such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance. And it further promotes gender justice and empowers women to exercise their rights on equal footing with men. It is also an important aspect of Uniform Civil Code. The third one is national integration. Now you must be thinking that how UCC will play an important role in national integration. UCC fosters national integration by promoting a common sense of identity and citizenship. Further, it reduces the divisions which are based on religious or cultural affiliations and strengthens the idea of a unified nation. And it can be understood that by having a common set of laws that applies to all citizens regardless of their backgrounds, it helps in creating a shared legal framework that reinforces the principles of secularism, which talks about equality and non-discrimination among different religious communities. The fourth one is simplification and standardization. The personal laws are derived from various religious traditions which can often be complex and fragmented. And a uniform civil code simplifies the legal system by replacing multiple set of personal laws with a single code, and it brings clarity and consistency in legal procedures and ensures that individuals have a clear understanding of their rights and obligations. And the last one is progressive social change. As we all are aware that personal laws which are rooted in religious and cultural practices may not always reflect the contemporary perspectives or address the emerging social issues. And a uniform civil code enables the legal system to be more responsive to the changing social needs, and it further promotes a forward-looking approach. In this slide, we have discussed in detail the need for uniform civil code. Now, what are the issues which are associated with uniform civil code? The first one is in the respect of religious freedom and cultural identity. The opponents argue that uniform civil code may infringe upon the religious freedom and cultural identity. And how it is being done? As we know, the personal laws often have deep roots in religious scriptures and traditions, and the communities may perceive any attempt to impose a common code as a threat to their religious practices and customs. For example, Muslim communities may view a uniform civil code as interference with their right to follow Sharia law in matters such as marriage and divorce. The second point is resistance from minority communities. The minority communities, particularly those with distinct cultural and religious practices, may resist the imposition of civil code. And the logic behind their resistance is that their personal laws provide them with a sense of identity, autonomy, and protection within a larger society. If their personal laws are replaced with a common set of laws, it may impact the identity and autonomy of minority communities with respect to their cultural practices. The third one is threat to tribals. The tribal communities have a unique cultural practices and customs that they have been following for generations, and the imposition of uniform civil code can threaten their customs and traditions. The fourth one is political opposition and polarization. The issue of uniform civil code can become highly politicized, with different political parties taking opposing positions based on their electoral calculations and support bases. And to increase their vote base, they may resort to protest against the implementation of uniform civil code, which will eventually result into polarization of Indian society, and it will also hinder the constructive dialogue and consensus building. The last one is socio-cultural sensitivities. Implementation of uniform civil code requires a careful consideration of socio-cultural sensitivities, as India is a country with lot of diversity in the terms of religion, culture and language. And some practices are deeply ingrained in personal laws which may have social and cultural significance within specific communities. Hence, the implementation of uniform civil code may impact the social fabric of Indian society. After discussing these issues in detail, you must be wondering what can be the way forward to implement uniform civil code in India. Now we will discuss the steps that could be taken towards implementing a uniform civil code. The first one is stakeholder consultation. Government needs to engage with various communities, including representatives from different religions, experts, scholars, and women rights organizations. This will ensure that diverse perspectives are considered and the concerns of all communities are addressed. The second one is Constitutional review. A thorough review of Indian Constitution should be conducted to assess the scope and feasibility of implementing a uniform civil code. This review should take into account the fundamental principles of equality, secularism, and the protection of individual rights which are given to all citizens in the Constitution. The third one is public awareness and education. There is a need to launch awareness campaigns that inform citizens about the concept and potential benefits of implementing the Uniform Civil Code. On one hand, this will dispel the misconceptions regarding UCC, and on the other hand, it will encourage the informed discussions on this particular topic. The next one is gradual implementation. The best approach to implement UCC is that government needs to start with the areas where there is a broad consensus and minimal resistance against the UCC. And this approach allows for gradual adaptation of personal laws to align with the principles of equality and justice. The next one is protection of minority rights. Government needs to ensure that the code respects the religious freedom, customs, and cultural practices of minority communities. And the core practices of minority communities should remain intact while implementing the UCC code, so that they should not feel that their practices and culture will be threatened after the implementation of Uniform Civil Code. The next one is legal reforms. There is a need to undertake necessary legal reforms to harmonize and align the personal laws with the principles of Uniform Civil Code, and this may involve amending or repealing certain provisions that are inconsistent with the constitutional values of equality and non-discrimination. The last one is sensitization of judiciary. In order to do that, there is a need for training programs and workshops for judges and legal professionals to sensitize them about the objectives and implications of a uniform civil code, and it will help in ensuring consistent and fair application of code in the judicial system. So in this way, the implementation of UCC can be done by addressing the concerns of different communities. Moreover, the 2018 Law Commission paper on reform of family law opted for recommendation that all codes needs to be internally reformed to make them more gender equal. A quick recap to our discussion. First of all, we have discussed the context and its relevance for General Studies Paper 2. We have also seen a 2015 mains question. We discussed what is Uniform Civil Code and the constitutional provision regarding UCC. After that, we went to discuss the need for the Uniform Civil Code and the issues which are associated with it. And finally, the steps that can be taken to implement the Uniform Civil Code. I hope after discussing the Uniform Civil Code in detail, you will be able to write a decent answer to this particular question. Moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is based on this news, which featured at front page of The Hindu. It talks about India-France relations. And during the visit to Paris, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized the future-oriented nature of India-France relations. He also advocated for a comprehensive transformation of global political and economic framework, highlighting India's role as a bridge between Western world and the global South. And this visit marks the celebration of 25 years of India-France strategic partnership. This topic is relevant under General Studies Paper 2, in which bilateral relations have been mentioned directly. In today's discussion, we will try to emphasize on India-France relations with respect to trade, defense, international cooperation, and space sector. Now, why should we study bilateral relations between two countries? UPSC has asked direct questions on bilateral relations. In 2014, a question was asked with respect to South China Sea. The maritime territorial disputes and rising tension affirm the need for safeguarding maritime security to ensure freedom of navigation and overflight throughout the region. In this context, discuss the bilateral issues between India and China. And in 2022, A question was asked on India's role in the recent crisis in Sri Lanka. So, from these questions, we get to see the importance of bilateral relations of India. And today, we will be focusing on India and France. France have been a traditional partner to India right since the very independence. And both countries has established diplomatic relations in 1947. The first component of India-France relation deals with trade. France has emerged as a key trading partner of India with annual trade of around $12 billion in the year 2022. And France is the 11th largest foreign investor in India with cumulative investment of around 1.7% of the total foreign direct investment flows into India. As France contributes a very less share to the total foreign direct investments, so there lies a huge scope in this particular regard. And Government of India is focusing on this particular aspect to strengthen the economic relations with France. The second component is related to defense. France is the second largest defense supplier between the period of 2017 to 2021, and it has emerged as a major strategic partner for India with crucial defense deals and increased military to military engagements. And during the current visit by Indian Prime Minister, India approved a plan to buy 26 Rafale M fighter jets to enhance the security preparedness of the country. And recently, first joint military exercise has been conducted between India and France, which is named as Fringe-X 2023. The next area of cooperation is in the field of nuclear ties. France was among the first countries with which India has signed a civil nuclear deal, and Paris played an important role in limiting India's isolation in non-proliferation order after 1998 Pokhran nuclear test. As after this particular test, there was a strong criticism from various countries like Canada and Japan on India's actions. And in that particular phase, India got the support from countries like France. And in the field of international cooperation, as we all know, India has been consistently demanding a permanent membership of United Nations Security Council. And France is the country which supports India's bid for the permanent membership as well as its entry into the nuclear supplier group. And further, in the field of climate change, India and France supported each other's commitment towards mitigating the climate change impact. And to give a practical shape to their efforts, India and France has launched International Solar Alliance at the Paris Summit in 2015. And this International Solar Alliance is an action-oriented, member-driven and a collaborative platform for increased deployment of solar energy technologies as a means for bringing energy access, ensuring energy security, and driving energy transition in its member countries. Now we will move to the space cooperation, which is an important area of collaboration between India and France. The Indian Space Research Organization, which is ISRO, and its French counterpart have a history of cooperation and collaboration spanning about 4 decades. And France, along with United States and Russia, has remained one of the India's closest space partners. And the first effort regarding the development of satellite was in 2011, in which the mega tropical satellite was launched by India and France. And the purpose of this satellite was to study the water cycle and the energy exchanges in tropical atmosphere, which helps in understanding of monsoon and tropical weather systems. The second is Saral Altica satellite. It was a joint mission between India and France, and this satellite was launched in 2013 to measure the ocean surface topography and provides a data on surface height, wind speed and wind height. And the information collected by this particular satellite helps in disaster management. The next one is joint Mars exploration. India and France has signed an agreement in 2018 to collaborate on Mars exploration. Under this partnership, India's Mars orbiter mission, which is Chandrayaan, and France Mars surface exploration program work together to share scientific data and research findings related to Mars. And lastly, Joint Working Group on Space. India and France have established a joint working group on space to strengthen their cooperation. And this group meets regularly to discuss and identify the areas of mutual interest, including satellite technology, remote sensing, climate change monitoring, and space science research. So, from this particular slide, we get an idea that there is a wide cooperation in the space sector between India and France. So, whenever a question related to India and France bilateral relations, you can mention these aspects in that particular question. And lastly, we discuss the way forward, what can be done to further strengthen the bilateral relations. And the first point says, due to the intensifying geopolitical trends in Indo-Pacific region, the long-standing and trusted partnership between India and France are likely to build even a closer partnership that will focus on building India's military strength. And the second point is related to minilaterals. Even if the bilateral relationships are strong, India and France must engage in minilaterals in Indo-Pacific so that to get more countries to endorse the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. And apart from diplomatic support and arms, India needs the actual material capacity of France to counter China in the Indo-Pacific region. And lastly, there is a need to strengthen the cooperation from government to people connect, which was also highlighted by the Prime Minister of India. Moving on to the next topic, which is based on this news, which has featured at page number 16 in The Hindu. It talks about Chandrayaan 3, which is going to be launched by ISRO on 14th July. Why we need to cover this particular topic for mains exam. In General Studies paper 3, a subtopic is mentioned which says awareness in the field of space. Hence, this topic is directly related to the syllabus. And in 2022, a question was asked on James Webb Space Telescope and its unique features. And in 2017, UPSC asked that India has achieved a remarkable success in unmanned space missions including Chandrayaan and Mars Orbiter mission. And what are the obstacles of launching a manned space mission, both in terms of technology and logistics? So, the questions related to space missions are important and recurring theme in UPSC mains exam. Keeping this thing in mind, we will be discussing about Chandrayaan 3 in detail. First of all, we'll discuss the basic details regarding Chandrayaan 3. It is a follow-on mission to Chandrayaan 2 to demonstrate end-to-end capability in safe landing and roving on the lunar surface. And it will be launched by Mark 3 launch vehicle from Sriharikota in Andhra Pradesh. And what are the objectives of Chandrayaan 3? The first one is to demonstrate a safe and soft landing on lunar surface near lunar south pole. The next one is to demonstrate rover roving on moon, which will carry out in situ chemical analysis on lunar surface during the course of its mobility. And lastly, to conduct in situ scientific experiments. Here we have briefly discussed about Chandrayaan 3 and its objectives. Now this mission ignites a curiosity why ISRO and other space organizations are planning missions towards moon. Today we will try to analyze this particular dimension, as nowadays UPSC is asking more specific questions regarding space missions. As we have seen in 2022 mains, in which James Webb Space Telescope was asked. So first of all, we will briefly discuss about Moon. Moon is the only satellite of Earth and it is devoid of atmosphere, and it rotates and revolves around Earth in around the same time as the Earth rotates on its axis. Here we have found three facts. The first one is it is the only satellite of Earth, it is devoid of atmosphere, and the time in which it rotates and revolves around the Earth is same as that of the time taken by Earth to rotate on its axis. And one more term is associated with Moon is tidal locking. It is a phenomena by which a body has the same rotational period as its orbital period around a partner. Since the Moon rotates around the Earth in same time as it takes to orbit Earth, and due to that, we can only see the one side of Moon. So, tidal locking is an important phenomena which is associated with Moon. As we have discussed, many countries are planning missions towards Moon. The first one, as we have discussed, is Chandrayaan 3, which is planned by ISRO on 14th July. The second one is Luna 25. It is a Russian mission scheduled to be launched in 2023. The third one is Artemis program of NASA. It aims to send a manned mission by 2025. And China is also planning to send a manned mission to Moon by 2030. A mission called SLIM. It is a small-scale exploration mission by Japan designed for pinpoint landings on Moon's surface. The next one in the list is iSpace. It is a Japanese startup aiming to have a lander on Moon in 2023. And lastly, India has ratified the Artemis Accord, which establishes a framework for cooperation in civil exploration and peaceful use of Moon, Mars, and other astronomical objects. So this information is important for prelims exam also. A question can be asked on Artemis Accord. Now we will discuss the reasons behind the increased focus on Moon. The first one is Moon is being seen as a vital stepping stone for interplanetary exploration. And why it is seen as a stepping stone? The first reason is proximity and accessibility. Moon is our closest celestial neighbor, making it relatively easier to reach compared to other planets. Hence, it became one of the major reasons. Further, Moon offers a unique opportunity for scientific research and exploration. By studying the Moon's geology, composition, scientists can gain valuable insights into the formation and evolution of celestial bodies, including Earth. That's why it is seen as a vital stepping stone for interplanetary exploration. The second reason is Moon has a presence of rare minerals and elements including titanium and helium that could be used to build nuclear fusion plants. And lastly, Moon has a presence of frozen water which can be harnessed for sustaining a population and agriculture. And lastly, we will discuss about the water on Moon. As we all know, Chandrayaan 1, India's first lunar mission, carried two instruments provided by NASA for surveying the poles of Moon for possible traces of water ice. And these instruments were Moon Mineralogical Mapper and a mini SAR. And these instruments gave a definitive proof of the presence of water ice in more than 40 craters on the poles of Moon, which indicates the potential for life, for research stations, settlements, and even for the cultivation of crops. Further, scientists do believe that the water is concentrated in craters because they do not receive any sunlight. And on the other parts of the Moon, due to the combination of low pressure and daylight temperatures, the water is getting evaporated. But this claim was negated in 2020 when the Sophia Observatory of NASA found the evidence of water on Moon in sunlit spot, which indicates that the water is widely distributed on Moon. Because of these reasons, Moon became an important destination for space exploration. A quick recap to our discussion. First of all, we have discussed the context regarding the launch of Chandrayaan 3, its relevance for General Studies Paper 3. We have seen the previous year questions and a basic details about Chandrayaan 3. We briefly discussed the details about Moon and the reasons behind the increased focus on Moon. Moving on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 11 in The Hindu. It basically talks about regional parties in India. Although the context of this news is not important as far as our mains exam is concerned, but regional parties play a significant role in Indian politics, and it is relevant for General Studies Paper 2, under which issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure is mentioned. And in 2022, UPSC asked that while national political parties favor centralization, the regional parties are in favor of state autonomy. You need to answer this question in 250 words. By keeping this question in mind, today we are going to discuss the role played by regional parties in Indian politics. The important role which they play in Indian politics is the regional representation. Regional parties serve as the voice of states or regions, and they act as a platform for people of particular region to express their unique identities and safeguard their interests. The second point here is coalition building. Regional parties often play a crucial role in forming coalition governments at national level. In a situation When no single national party secures an absolute majority, then regional parties become crucial partners for larger parties to form a stable government. And they negotiate for region-specific demands and contribute to the policy-making process. The third one is balancing power. Regional parties act as a check on the dominance of national parties, and they provide an alternate power center and prevent the concentration of power in the hands of few national parties. And this helps in maintaining a balance of power and ensure the diverse interests of different regions are represented in the national decision making. The next is federalism and decentralization. Regional parties advocate for greater decentralization of power and resources to the state. They emphasize the principles of federalism and demand more autonomy for states to make decisions on matters such as finance, resources, and governance. And further, they strive to protect the rights and autonomy of their respective regions within the federal structure of India. The next one is socio-cultural representation. Regional parties are often closely associated with cultural, linguistic, or ethnic groups within a state or region. They play a role in preserving and promoting regional languages, traditions, and cultural heritage. Moreover, these parties provide a platform for communities to express their socio-cultural aspirations and safeguard their identity. And the last in the list is niche issues. Regional parties often focus on specific niche issues that may not receive attention from the national parties, and they address the concerns of marginalized communities, backward regions, farmers, laborers, tribals, and other sections of society that may be neglected in the broader national political discourse. Hence, it is important to note that the role and influence of regional parties can vary depending on the factors such as political landscape, electoral dynamics, and the specific state or region they represent. So that's all for today's discussion. Thank you for watching today's DNS. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions which will enhance your preparation for the civil services exam.